Back in 2000, when the original Fast and the Furious was released, who could have possibly guessed that it would be one of the longest running and successful franchises of all time? That movie was essentially just a fun remake of Point Break. However, here we are, 19 years later, and it's almost more surprising that we haven't had a direct spin-off before this. The movie stars Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham as the titular Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw. Johnson has been with the franchise since its best entry to date, Fast 5.
And above all else, we don't ever let them get in the cars.
Statham was seen briefly in Fast and Furious 6 and was the main villain in Furious 7 until he ended up in an uneasy alliance with the team in The Fate of the Furious. Johnson and Statham had great chemistry in Fate, which made the idea of a spin-off starring them very appealing.
I mean, do you really believe you can stand in front of me and beat me in a straight-up old-fashioned fistfight?
Let me tell you something. Me and you, one-on-one, I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum.
Maybe one day we'll find out.
Oh, you better hope that day never comes.
Both actors have the chops to successfully carry a movie without the rest of the cast, so the move seemed like a no-brainer. The film begins with Hattie, Vanessa Kirby. She's part of a security team that is attacked by Brixton, Idris Elba. It turns out they are transporting a super dangerous virus. She injects herself with it and escapes, while Brixton kills the rest of her team. Soon, Locke, Ryan Reynolds, visits Hobbs to get him involved with the mission. Why is this happening? Because if it didn't, he wouldn't be in this movie. It turns out that Brixton is a cybernetically enhanced human with super strength, speed, and durability. He calls himself Black Superman. It also turns out that Hattie is Deckard Shaw's sister. So now the three have to team up to keep Brixton from getting the virus and find a way to keep Hattie alive. Fast 5 was the high point for this franchise, and every film since then has been enjoyable, but they have also had diminishing returns on each entry. Now we finally have a dud, which is disappointing. Of course, the plot is one of the goofiest ever written, but you're at the wrong theater if you expect Shakespeare. The idea of these two going up against a superpowered Idris Elba sounds like a lot of fun, but instead, it was just a slog. The great chemistry the two had in The Fate of the Furious runs thin here. It's just the two exchanging insults, which more often than not are just dick jokes. Hobbs gets the obligatory romance with Hattie, which feels forced. Brixton is essentially a Terminator-type villain, except he fails to ever do serious damage to anyone despite his superpowers. So it feels less like supervillain against normal people, and more like super invincible people slugging it out on repeat. Kevin Hart gets an extended cameo in this movie, which ends up doing nothing but making you wish you were watching the vastly more entertaining Central Intelligence.
I got a plan. Might get us both killed, but if it works, it'll be a totally boss story. Cool?
No, it's not cool.
Cool.
No, I said it's not cool.
Even Ryan Reynolds had better chemistry with Johnson than Statham does here, making you wish for a Hobbs and Locke movie instead of a Hobbs and Shaw. It's a shame. Both these leads have an incredible amount of on-screen charisma. This movie should have worked way better, but instead it feels like a script trying to hit all the check marks for a cliche buddy movie. In the end, the lead characters fail to develop any meaningful relationship. They continue to insult each other, and each time it feels more forced. This is a franchise that's fairly dependent on the charms of its actors and the energy of its direction to get by, not the brilliance of the script. Unfortunately, David Leitch, who just came off the success of Deadpool 2, can't quite seem to find the flow of this movie, which in turn makes it fairly boring. Even the action is uninspired. This Fast and Furious entry runs out of gas.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.